Make me wanna move my feet. That rhythm is in my bones.
Me and Mr. Jones.
The spotlight once made them immortal. Every step, every song captivated many hearts. But few people know that the men who make the best love songs are the loneliest, most depraved, and miserable when they leave the spotlight. Some were accused of forcing their lovers to have abortions to protect their image. Some left dozens of unrecognized children. We are so used to looking at them with admiration, forgetting that behind the artist's appearance is a heart full of cracks. This story is not just to expose, but to understand, to feel, to love. The legends on this list may shock you, may make you feel troubled. Let's enter their real world, where sex is not just an instinct, but a deep scar that is not easy to heal. Listen, and share your perspective after watching this video. 25. Leon Haywood, the man with the music and the offers he could never refuse. In the sexy R&B world of the 1970s, Leon Haywood was a name that made many people blush, but could not take their ears off. His song, "I Want to Do Something Freaky to You," was considered the anthem of love nights, stirring up instinctive emotions that the music world at that time avoided. He appeared on stage in a bright suit, sparkling eyes, and a smile as if he knew exactly what you were thinking. But behind the scenes, people called him the man with the music and the offers he could never refuse. Leon was an artist with assets, with charisma, with a network. But people whispered that he also had a list of women who were invited into the studio, not to sing. A veteran drummer once recounted that in 1980 during a recording session in Chicago, Leon ordered the lights in the studio to be dimmed by 70%. The door locked, leaving only himself and a young female singer. The girl later retired from the music industry, but once drunk, she said, "I wasn't picked for my voice, I was picked for my silence." One night in Atlanta, after a small performance at a soul club, Leon allegedly took 3 women to a hotel room. A receptionist said that after midnight, one of the 3 rushed out of the room in a panic while the other 2 stayed. When the receptionist called security, the tour manager showed up and settled by renting an extra room and moving the girl elsewhere. No one called the police, no complaints were filed. Just a quiet note in the personnel book. The show ended in silence. Leon was never sued, never involved in an official scandal, but his stories live on in the female artist community. A former production assistant said, "I walked into a room while he was playing. There was a girl next to him, almost naked, blindfolded with his tie, and he said, 'Don't worry, music is a release.'" In his later years, Leon withdrew from the stage and lived a quiet life. He avoided interviews and did not attend artist meetings. When he died in 2016, a close friend said, "Leon died the way he lived, few words, full of hidden meanings, and no apologies." The question is not whether he loved music. It is, did he love people? And were those erotic notes the sweet confession of a lonely soul who did not know how to apologize? 24. Clarence Carter, the man who sings with nakedness. Clarence Carter did not need the spotlight to be the center. All he needed was one line, "I be strokin', that's what I be doin'." The song was banned from many radio stations, but it was played over and over again in nightclubs, bedrooms, and even cars. Clarence Carter didn't write songs to romanticize love. He wrote songs about naked sex, but in the eyes of many, he was more than just an artist. He was a man who lived without shame. A female singer who worked with him in 1982 recalled that during the first recording session. Clarence sat behind the console, one hand adjusting the sound, the other resting on her leg under the table. When she stepped back, he smiled and said, "I need to feel it to produce better." The studio manager just turned away. No one defended her, no one spoke up. After that recording session, she retired from the music industry. A bassist who toured with Clarence said that on every tour, at least 3 women were brought onto the tour bus. They were not staff, they were not artists, they were Clarence's people. Some were young enough to be in a club, some were older, but their eyes were blank. One of them was kicked off a tour bus in the middle of the night in Texas after refusing to go to his room. In 1991, Clarence was publicly denounced by a young journalist who came to interview him. She said he asked to be interviewed privately in his hotel room, then tried to lock the door. She was lucky to escape. when she tried to go public. Her newspaper refused to publish it because of the risk of a countersuit. Clarence once said, "I write from my heart, and my heart loves women." But that heart, by many accounts, also beats wildly in the face of power. Many believe he used his fame as a tool to escape moral standards. Clarence Carter is still alive, still performing, still singing about strokin'. But to many who have stood close to him, those songs no longer sound funny. They serve as a reminder that there are artists who don't need to hide, because the world has grown accustomed to their ridiculousness. The question is, are we applauding something that doesn't deserve to be called art? 23. Don Covay, the Whisperer. Don Covay was never the most famous person in a room, but he was always the most charismatic. He wrote songs for Aretha Franklin, Little Richard, and himself, R&B that was street chic, wet, and sexy. But the whispers behind the scenes weren't about his music. They were about how he selected female talent, an invitation, a locked door, a singing dream that was replaced by silence. In 1974, while recruiting singers for a new record, Don held a private audition in a New York hotel room. A young singer named Althea, who later became a cashier in Baltimore, recalled, "He told me to sing, then told me to show my confidence by sitting on his lap." When she refused, he called in his assistant and said, "This girl doesn't have the vibe." A sound engineer once revealed that Don had a habit of recording non-musical parts. A leaked tape circulated inside Stax Records, in which Don told a girl, "Want to be like Aretha? You have to make me miss you with all 5 senses." The tape disappeared. No one knows where it went, but the rumors never died. Don lived a private life. He rarely shared about his family. A close friend revealed that Don had 3 illegitimate children with 3 different female artists, none of whom were officially recognized. One of those children tried to meet him at the Soul Train Awards in 1988, but was stopped by security. The young man shouted, "You can write songs, but you can't be a father." When Don Covay passed away in 2015, many articles praised him as the soul of R&B, but in the dark. Some women and children remained silent. They did not speak up, not because they did not want to, but because no one was willing to listen. Perhaps Don Covay's music is his legacy, but the silence surrounding him is also a lesson that behind a whisper can be a scream buried for life. 22. Major Lance, the Wanderer with the Dishonest Smile. Major Lance was known for his gentle smile, his elegant black glasses, and his charming, gentle soul style. Hits like made him a phenomenon for a time, but behind that image was a man who lived a loose and mysterious life. A drummer who performed with him in the 70s recalled Major never had a hotel room, but always asked for 1 to rest, 1 to entertain female guests. That statement spread throughout the show organizers like an unspoken understanding. One of the incidents that was whispered about inside Motown was about a night in Detroit, when Major was caught entering a nightclub with 3 girls. One of the 3 was the girlfriend of a famous artist of the time, and the matter exploded into a brawl behind the scenes, although he was not discovered by the media. His name was pulled from a major tour program after that night for internal reasons. An anonymous sound staff member once shared that during a show in Los Angeles. He saw Major come out of the technical room with a dancer sobbing. The girl was replaced from the show that night. Many years later, people found an old handwritten letter she had written, talking about being forced to keep quiet if you want to survive in the industry. At the end of his life, Major lived in the dark after a prison sentence related to illegal drugs. He almost lost all contact with the music world when he died in 1994 of heart disease. There was no memorial show, no one to honor him. There was only a brief line in the newspaper, "The man who once had the brightest smile in Chicago has passed away." Sometimes, a smile can hide a scarred soul. Major Lance is remembered for his gentle music, but those who walked with him cannot forget the darkness behind the sound. 21. Billy Paul, the Man of Two Worlds. Billy Paul had a voice like a beautiful confession. Me and Mrs. Jones is the most famous love song about adultery of all time, and his voice was haunting, as if he had lived it himself. People called him a romantic with his morality, but that morality, according to a former manager, only applied from the waist up. In 1976, backstage at a show in Philadelphia, Billy was caught in a sensitive situation with a young singer who had just signed a contract. A security guard said he opened the door because he heard an argument and saw the girl trying to pull her hand away from him. The incident was covered up with money and silence. But then the girl abruptly left her career. Years later, in a rare interview, she simply said his music was beautiful, but he was not. Billy is said to have had relationships with 3 women in the industry. One of them was the wife of a jazz musician who threatened Billy with tapes of their illicit encounters. The record labels had to settle for money to make it all disappear. Billy never denied questions about love, but he always said, "I love the way I do, and love has no rules." In his later years, he returned to church and recorded gospel songs, but his voice was no longer the same. One singer said he lost his tone because he lost his soul. When Billy Paul died in 2016, thousands of people shared his music, but some women remained silent, carrying memories that no one dared to tell. Perhaps, for some, he was an icon. For others, he was a wound. 20. Marvin Sease, the Bed Preacher. Marvin Sease was the embodiment of unbridled provocation, from songs like Candy Liquor to performances that were called half show, half love ritual. He made audiences blush and become addicted, but within the industry, he was known as the Bed Preacher for his ability to manipulate women with both his words and his reputation. A female singer who toured with him in 1993 said that in each city, Marvin always asked the hotel to reserve 2 separate rooms next to each other, one for him, and one for the person who was with him that night. The girl witnessed many young women from the audience being invited on stage, then disappearing backstage. She once asked, "Are they fans?" and received a cold reply, "It's an offering." During a performance in Atlanta, Marvin was knocked on the door of his hotel room by police after a woman complained that she was forced to stay without consent. The show's management quickly intervened and settled the matter with a settlement. The woman disappeared from the media. People who worked with Marvin say he was interested in controlling relationships. There were rumors that he had invested in a Mississippi sex den that hosted private parties for artists. But no one dared to confirm. "If you opened your mouth, you were pulled," one drummer once said. Marvin Sease died of lung cancer in 2011. His funeral was small, but hundreds of women came to pay their respects. One of them placed a large piece of candy on his coffin, perhaps because she had been the candy in his songs. But in her eyes, it wasn't love, it was bitterness. Marvin's legacy is not just music, but also a question. Art can touch the body, but is it allowed to trample on the soul? 19. Johnny Taylor, the silent king of bastards. Johnny Taylor was once called every Southern ladies' man. With his smooth voice and passionate eyes, he made anyone who heard "Who's Making Love" or "Cheaper" to keep her smile, because the lyrics told their own stories. But behind that halo was a truth that puzzled the entire music industry. He had too many children, and almost no one knew how many were real. A famous lawsuit in 2002, 2 years after his death, revealed that Johnny had at least 7 illegitimate children who claimed he was their biological father. Some were older than his real sons. A daughter named Cheryl once said that her mother was a dancer who went on tour with Johnny in 1974. He gave her a necklace, then disappeared like they had never met. Every time his song came on, my mother just kept quiet. The most hidden story is the story of a baby boy who was rumored to be Johnny's child, with a woman whose husband was a Soul-trained security guard. The child had the same curly hair, mischievous eyes, and a passion for singing, but Johnny never confirmed it. The security guard resigned after an internal fight, and the incident was relegated to the personal category. Johnny Taylor died in 2000 carrying secrets that no one dared to ask. His will simply read, "I love all my children, named and unnamed." To his fans, he was a great artist. To some women, he was an unhealed wound. And to the children who never heard his name publicly, he is a vague, unanswered memory. 18. Sill Johnson, the two-faced man. Sill Johnson is a name that straddles 2 worlds, music and business. With the hit "Is It Because I'm Black?", he was praised as an artist who dared to speak the truth. But behind that moral and fighting shell was a private life that surprised many people. In the Chicago music world, He was known as the man who can't sleep alone. A former bandmate recalled that Sill had a habit of keeping a notebook, not to write song lyrics, but to write down the names of women who had spent the night with him. The notebook disappeared after a baggage check at the airport, and a month later, someone anonymously sent a letter to the record label demanding silence money for having the notebook in his possession. A female singer who collaborated with him in 1981 said that after refusing his offer to stay and write music until morning, she was removed from the entire summer tour. Sill doesn't like being rejected, her manager told her. A handwritten note, believed to have been written by an ex-lover in 1985, reads, "You say you're anti-discrimination, but you objectify women. Worse, you're a hypocrite." The letter was never made public, but artists still pass it around as a warning. Sill Johnson died in 2022. He left behind hundreds of great songs and a legacy of controversy about who he was. Some called him a black warrior, some called him a womanizer. But perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, and most importantly, if you stood before him at the end of your life, what would you say? 17. Joe Tex, the man who lived his songs. Joe Tex was charisma incarnate. In songs like Skinny Legs and All and Hold What You've Got, he made listeners laugh and nod. But those who met him in person said one thing: Joe didn't act. He lived up to the lyrics, a loud, outspoken, and unpredictable man. A musician in the band once said that Joe had a strange habit every time he arrived in a new city. He asked the hotel to reserve red roses and a list of local women who admired him. His manager often had to ask the fan club to pick out suitable people to send post-show invitations. A shocking incident occurred in 1976 at a Motown event in Los Angeles. Joe allegedly invited a 17-year-old girl to his hotel room after the show. When the girl's mother found out and called the police, the record company immediately sent a lawyer to settle the matter. The incident never made the news, but then Joe was frozen from several major TV shows. It is also rumored that Joe wrote a series of handwritten letters to a famous female singer, begging her not to make public their unforgettable night in 1969. Those letters are said to still be in his former manager's safe. Joe Tex died in 1982 of a heart attack. On his death certificate, he was described as a singer-songwriter, but to those who knew him, that title was not enough. He was an artist who was both honest and dangerous, both charming and destructive, and more importantly, he was a reminder that sometimes living up to the lyrics can make the world cry. 16. Tyrone Davis, the man with the inviting eyes. Tyrone Davis was once called the seducer with the eyes, with his sweet whining voice. He made hits like Can I Change My Mind bedroom icons for a generation of soul lovers. But behind the microphone was a man who lived like he was acting out a never-ending love scene. A female singer who toured with him said that Tyrone had a habit of writing lyrics on women's backs. Not paper, he was joking, but his eyes weren't joking. In 1984, backstage at a Jackson concert, a fan claimed that she was kept late after he suggested that she could sing with him if she were softer. The story was quashed before it reached the press. A former manager said that for the first 2 years, Tyrone demanded that his gigs include a separate sitting room for meditation, but everyone knew that was where he entertained female fans. One of them wrote a handwritten letter to Ebony magazine, describing the unspeakable pain he felt after a night with his idol. The letter was never published. When Tyrone Davis died in 2005 from lung complications, hundreds of people came to pay their respects. Among them, a few women stood silently, nameless, wordless, with just bitter eyes. His music may have healed, but his life did not. And sometimes, the sweet notes hide a tragedy deeper than we think. If you are still following, it means your heart is big enough to understand that no light is completely pure. The first 10 are just the prelude, the rest will keep you glued to your eyes. But ask yourself this: if we live surrounded by fame and temptation, are we any different? 15. Barry White, the Night Whisperer. Barry White didn't have to touch anyone to make them shiver. He just opened his mouth. Songs like Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe were the definition of pure seduction. He was called the Love Whisperer. But many who were close to him whispered something else: the shadow controller. A woman who had been a cover model for a record said that in 1979, Barry called her into his studio to discuss the image. The discussion lasted 3 hours, in a private room, with no witnesses. She left in tears, and her image remained on the record cover, but she didn't receive a penny. When speaking to the press, Barry would simply say she was an inspiration. A stage manager said that Barry often requested that each show have 4 special tickets reserved for his guests, always young women with long curly hair, dressed in black. They came quietly and left early. One of them was seen leaving a hotel with him, crying and clutching a torn dress. Barry White died of kidney failure in 2003. His music was solemn at his funeral. But for some women, he was not a symbol of love, but a symbol of the inability to speak up. And music, no matter how beautiful, is sometimes just a cover. 14. Wilson Pickett, the Black Whirlwind out of control. Wilson Pickett was known as the Black Whirlwind, his fierce voice, explosive performance style, unmatched. In the midnight hour made him a legend, but it was also the midnight hour that was rumored to be the moment he lost control of himself. A guitarist told of Wilson breaking down his hotel room door in 1972 after his girlfriend refused to try out a sex scene he had written for that night. The police were called, but the tour manager intervened, and the story disappeared from the record. The most closely guarded account comes from a woman who was a backup dancer on a TV show he appeared. She said she was forced to make a private video with him, which was then saved on a personal camcorder. The tape was later used to threaten her when she tried to report it to the press. "Music is war, and I am the weapon," Wilson once said. That statement seemed to refer not only to the stage but also to his personal life. Many loved him like a god, but to others, he was a nameless fear. He died in 2006, leaving behind immortal music, but also a nagging question: can a talented artist be forgiven for creating great melodies, despite the pain they caused in silence? 13. David Ruffin, Lover Hurts. David Ruffin was the soulful voice of the Temptations. He not only sang but also cried with his music, with his hit, My Girl. He made countless women dream of embracing a man who truly loved. But the truth is, those who fell in love with David came out hurt. An old close friend of his said that David used to keep a handwritten list of his lovers' names, not as a souvenir, but to avoid confusion when calling at night. The list was 4 pages long. A former Soul Train backstage member recounted a night in Chicago where David allegedly forced a rookie female singer to stay in the studio to keep her Motown contract. The girl refused, and the next morning, her name was removed from the schedule. The story that has been whispered for many years is about David's affair with another female R&B star, who later revealed that he tended to be violent when jealous. He loved like he was fighting, she said. But that kind of love only left scars. David Ruffin died in 1991 of a drug overdose. No one knows which of the hundreds of women he had been with was the last one he remembered. His music resonates forever, but the darkness behind his singing still makes people shudder. Perhaps the scariest thing is not the person who doesn't know how to love, but the person who loves too much. 12. Dennis Edwards, Motown's hidden lover. Dennis Edwards was a breath of fresh air when he joined the Temptations, bringing a strong, fierce, and captivating voice. He was a quiet man off stage but famous for silently radiating heat behind the scenes. In the Motown world, he was called the hidden lover, because the number of women who passed through his life was so great that no one knew who was real or fake. A former female backing vocalist said that Dennis had a habit of meeting women in his car after each show. The car was always parked in the darkest corner of the parking lot, and each time it lasted exactly 30 minutes. It was a habit, not love. There were rumors that Dennis once got a famous girl group member pregnant, but because of her fame and the pressure of her record label, she broke it off and kept quiet. The affair never appeared on paper, but a member of the management confirmed that there was an extra payment that month. Dennis Edwards passed away in 2018. He left behind many powerful and inspiring songs, but also left big questions about the real person behind the scenes. For fans, he was a fire on stage. For some women, he was a burn that never healed. And for the music industry, perhaps he was a chapter that was never really written. 11. Eddie Kendricks' sweet voice, messy life. Eddie Kendricks was the softness and the strength of the Temptations. His falsetto melted women's hearts, making the audience fall silent every time he sang Just My Imagination. But in real life, that imagination led to a love maze that even he could not escape. Eddie was rumored to be a quiet person, but a passionate lover. A security guard said that one night he brought 3 women backstage at the same time, introducing them with 3 different names. The story was only told when one of them saw the other 2 waiting. One incident that Motown kept secret was Eddie's affair with a woman who was married to a producer at the label. The affair nearly caused an internal scandal, but was quelled by removing both men from that winter tour. A handwritten note never released to the press, believed to have been written by Eddie, read, "I don't know who I love, I just know I don't want to sleep alone." The words haunt readers as much as his voice. Eddie Kendricks died in 1992 of lung cancer. At his funeral, friends talked about the music, and the audience talked about feelings, but no one talked about the women who loved him in silence. Perhaps because they understood that voice was not for anyone. It belonged to the crowd, but his heart had never stopped. 10. Al Green, the Church Prince and the Boiling Water. Al Green was once the voice of heaven, with hits like Let's Stay Together or Love and Happiness. He became the symbol of a gentle, profound, and spiritual man. But behind that pious appearance was a series of love scandals that made the whole church shake its head. He was called the Church Prince, but his life was an upside-down holy book. In 1974, a shocking incident occurred when Al Green's girlfriend, Mary Woodson, threw a pot of boiling water on him while he was taking a bath, then shot herself. The media at the time simply reported it as emotional conflict, but a story from a maid said that Mary discovered that Al had promised to marry her while having affairs with 2 other women. The police found a handwritten letter in Mary's suitcase which read, "I am not the person on your waiting list, I am a human being." The letter has never been made public, but is in the internal files, kept confidential to protect the image of the man who sang for God. After the incident, Al Green joined the church and became a pastor. But many in the community still questioned, did he seek God out of remorse, or because he wanted to escape questioning? Al is still alive, still singing, preaching, but the look of some women who loved him is no longer admiration, but regret. That sometimes, people can sing about love all their lives but never understand it. 9. Jackie Wilson, the fire that never goes out even behind the scenes. Jackie Wilson is the embodiment of stage energy. Every turn, every spin, every scream is a storm that sweeps the audience into ecstasy. People called him Mr. Excitement, but those who knew him well added, "Backstage," one exclaims. Jackie didn't perform, Jackie lived on the bed and the stage. A stage manager recounted that, during a tour of the South, Jackie was caught excessively affectionate with a dancer in the prop store during intermission. The manager tried to report it to the organizers, but the company's security team threatened to sue him if he damaged the artist's image. The most shocking incident was the rumor of a secret child that emerged in 1980 claiming to be his son with a maid who had worked at a hotel in Memphis. The woman wrote to the record label asking for a DNA test, but the file disappeared after only a month. That year, Jackie fell into a coma from a stroke, unable to be verified, and never woke up. He died in 1984 without a final word, without a final truth. People remember him for his famous dance moves and soulful voice, but in the eyes of a few close to him, there is still an unanswered question: can the halo cover up the things we dare not face? 8. Isaac Hayes, the king of film music and the secret behind the red velvet curtain. Isaac Hayes was more than a musician. He was an empire. From his Oscar win for theme from Shaft to his instrumental love songs, he brought an instinctive elegance to black music, but behind the scenes, he was known as the King of the Red Curtain, referring to the private rooms where he held special writing sessions that only women were invited to. A Stax employee once said that Isaac had a habit of keeping a private key to a secret recording studio, where he recorded not music, but personal videos. In 1977, a tape was leaked of him and 2 models acting out lyrics in a nude situation. The tape was recalled by the record company before it went viral. A young female singer said that she was once offered to go deep into the songwriting emotions with Isaac in a private apartment, on the condition that no one else would come along. She refused. A week later, she was removed from a collaborative album, and no one explained why. Isaac Hayes died in 2008 of a stroke. His funeral was held solemnly, with thousands of people coming to see him off. But in the darkness, a few women were left nameless, voiceless. His music lives on. But the question remains, how many souls have been silent so that a genius can shine? 7. Chuck Berry, the man who filmed everything. Chuck Berry is a legend who gave birth to rock and roll, but also the man who shocked the whole country with his bizarre sex tapes. People called him the man who always looked through the camera, because he was discovered to have installed a hidden camera in the bathroom of the restaurant he owned. In 1990, the police searched his house and found dozens of tapes of women changing clothes, even minors. A former employee said that Berry personally checked the cameras every week and kept the tapes in a safe. He was sued and had to pay nearly $1.3 million to settle quietly. A woman who worked as a waitress said, "I thought I was working for a legend until I saw my face on a hidden camera." Chuck Berry never publicly apologized. He lived in isolation at the end of his life, avoiding the media. When he passed away in 2017, many people only mentioned guitars and Johnny B. Good. But perhaps what is more confusing is, why did a musical genius choose to leave his mark with images that no one dared to look back on? 6. Rick James, the self-immolating sex god. Rick James once declared, "I don't need heaven, because I live like a god in hell," with his braided hair and wild lifestyle. He was a symbol of unrestrained sex in the 1980s, but his actions were not only shocking, they also crossed the legal line. In 1993, he was arrested for holding and torturing a woman for days in a hotel, along with his girlfriend. The incident was so shocking that the Motown artists collectively kept silent to protect the musical legacy. Rick was sentenced to 5 years in prison. "Rick doesn't have sex, Rick controls, and everyone is afraid," said a witness. After his release from prison, he tried to restore his image with music and talk shows, but the darkness in his eyes never disappeared. An article once compared him to a lion let loose among the weak. Rick James died in 2004 of heart failure, taking with him both glory and scandal. And people still cannot answer, was he a victim of fame or a man who burned himself out with lust? 5. James Brown, the king of funk and the nameless children. James Brown was the king of funk with energy that surpassed all limits. On stage, he was like thunder. But behind the lights, James was the man who made many women pregnant and many children live in silence. A former manager said he could name the songs he wrote, but he couldn't remember the names of his children. In 2007, after his death, 12 people claimed to be his biological children, forcing the family to undergo mass DNA testing. One of them, a 15-year-old boy from Georgia, said that his mother had been a dancer in a group that performed in 1990 and had stayed after the show with James when she was 18. Another woman left a handwritten letter. "I don't need you to admit it. Just remember that you told me you loved me." The letter never reached James Brown. He died with millions of people crying, but also leaving a hole that his family could not fill. Perhaps people still sing "I Feel Good" to remember him, but do those nameless children feel good? 4. Ray Charles, the man who saw instinctively. Ray Charles couldn't see the world, but he felt women with all his other senses. With more than 50 hits and 12 Grammys, he was an irreplaceable legend, but outside the studio, he was known as the man of dozens of children. After his death, 12 children who claimed to be his illegitimate children appeared. One of them said, "He didn't remember my face." But he remembered that night, backstage at ABC Records. Ray had a private room, always locked, where young girls were brought in with the excuse of supporting their careers. A witness once said he knew who was in front of him by the way they trembled. Ray passed away in 2004. His music was full of soul, but behind the scenes of his life, a quiet blues of people who were not named. 3. Prince, the lawless lover. Prince was a universe of his own, where sex, music, and soul were one. With Purple Rain, Kiss, or Darling Nikki, he challenged all boundaries of gender, morality, and censorship. But behind the dim lights, Prince was called the limitless lover. A former dancer recalled that during a rehearsal. He asked all the female members to wear underwear to find inspiration for the moves. Many homosexual, transgender, and group love relationships were rumored within the Paisley Park inner circle. Someone once said Prince didn't care who you were, as long as you made his heartbeat go off. When he passed away, Prince left behind a huge fortune but no will. Not a single lover was named. Perhaps he didn't need to belong to anyone, because his whole life belonged only to passion. 2. Sam Cooke, the irresistible charm. Sam Cooke was the angelic voice of the 60s, who paved the way for black soul to spread globally. But his death was shrouded in carnal darkness. In 1964, he was shot dead at a small motel, in an incident that has never been clarified. It is said that he was with a young girl, then suspected of theft, and stormed into the hotel owner's office naked. An employee heard Sam scream, "She cheated on me, I just want to love." The case was closed as jealous violence, but many believe it was orchestrated to bury the scandal of love and illegitimate children. Sam died at just 33, taking with him a career that was in full swing, and questions that still burn to this day. 1. Marvin Gaye, the man who loved to the end. Marvin Gaye is the soul of R&B, but he is also a man burned by his desire. Let's Get It On is not just a love song, but a confession. He was in love with his best friend's wife, was involved in a suspected homosexual affair with a male dancer, and was so addicted to sex that he couldn't stay alone for more than a night. An ex-lover revealed that Marvin asked to re-record the breakup scene many times to use it as inspiration for writing music. In 1984, he was shot dead by his father after a series of days of depression, paranoia, and internal conflict. Marvin Gaye is not just an artist, he is proof that sometimes loving too much can kill a soul that once knew how to save the world. No one is perfect, even music legends. The stories behind the scenes are sometimes shocking, but also an opportunity to understand that fame does not heal all wounds. They were wrong, lost, but also brought melodies that saved millions. Forgiveness does not erase memories, but helps us move forward with kindness. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the stories behind the spotlight. If anything in this video makes you think or feel moved, please like, share, or leave a message. Your understanding is a precious gift that helps the past become kinder in the collective memory.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching this journey all the way till the end. If you enjoy revisiting these incredible stories, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so you will never miss any of our new upcoming videos about Black artists and celebrities. So go ahead and explore more powerful stories waiting for you on the screen right above me. And see you next time. Bye bye.